Niall, Craig, welcome. Excited to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Gar.
Thanks very much, Gar. Great to be back again.
Back again, back again. So topic today, pretty specific topic really, is on these on the new an update in the pathway that you guys are doing through the coach education. So I suppose the first question is if you could kind of talk us through how long the process of reviewing and then planning this update has been.
Yeah, well, I suppose UEFA have a coaching convention document which every 5 years they would update. And during that 5 year period, every 2 years, there would be a meeting of all of the head of coach education, high performance directors of each of the 54 countries. So over the last number of years, when I originally came in, one of the key things we wanted to do was to try and tie in with that. So to align when we do make changes. So we introduced with the player development plan in 2015, one of the key recommendations was a universal approach to everything in terms of player development and coach development. So once that was launched, we really went in then in 2016, reviewing what we currently did at that time. And then we launched the 2017 to 2020 pathway. And immediately, once it was launched, you're literally into an immediate review, surveys, high-end courses. I did research with a full UEFA B license course group where we tracked them from application all the way through the course. Even with the ones that were unsuccessful, we followed up with a number of them afterwards. And then really it was probably 15 months of hard work over the last 15 months to pull it together to where we are now, to coincide with UEFA's 2020 convention, which was just launched last month. So there was a lot of work went behind the scenes. A lot of people were involved, too many to thank. But we're great, very happy with how it's come to life and very happy with how it was received when we launched it at the weekend.
Brilliant. What are the big changes?
The big changes really are what you have now is specialist licenses for goalkeeping. So UEFA now have a UEFA GKB license, and I'll let Craig talk about the goalkeeping pathway in a moment. But you also have the introduction of a UEFA C license. So up until now, you would have seen countries doing a national C license, which meant the national qualification was only really acknowledged or accredited in your own country. Now with a UEFA C license, it means that you can now travel throughout Europe and have that freedom of movement to other countries and have that qualification acknowledged and credible wherever you go throughout UEFA's 54 convention countries, which is great for freedom of movement for coaches. Also, there's a change in terms of currently, if we had applications from external coaches, we would work under the 10% rule. That's now removed. So it's now where we would prioritize up to 50% of the places on a course for home-based coaches, and then the other 50% based on competencies on application to the course and seeing whether they've gotten cross borders, which is a permission form from their own federation to come into another country. It could be based on the fact that they want to move to the country, work in the country. They could be moving to live, or they want to work and develop themselves or challenge themselves through another language. So that's a huge change within the convention. Within our own pathway as well, we've looked at a more modular route in terms of CPD. So you'll now see people being able to challenge themselves. So, for example, a C license coach may not know whether they want to go into a UEFA B license. They may not know whether they want to invest and become a professional coach or work in that environment. And in the past, you had to literally jump in there. Well, now we have modules, so now people can test the waters in terms of football fitness and performance analysis. So it gives them an insight which is cost effective, and really that'll let them know whether or not they're ready for that natural step or that jump into the UEFA B license, that professional entity. Because really from UEFA C license down, the courses are really built around being as cost effective as we possibly can. We've seen a reduction in the prices for those courses, especially at Grassroots, because we want to ensure as many coaches do the courses as possible. And then obviously as you jump into the professional ones, they're much more time consuming. Our UEFA B license is 1,950, but you would have 5 contact blocks. So you can obviously imagine it's over a 9 to 12 month period, while all of the other courses would be a much shorter 1 day, 3 hour workshop, weekend courses. So once you sort of make that jump into the UEFA B license, you're really making that step into the professional environment. So the modular route gives people that opportunity to do that on a testing basis or a slower basis over a specific element of time. Craig, do you want to jump in and just talk about the goalkeeping side of it?
Yeah, it's something that we've kind of developed over the last 3-4 years, Gary. To be honest, and it's grown. Niall tasked me up when I first moved into the association, into the department, with enhancing what we already had there. So we looked at a full pathway, and with 5 courses at the moment. Please God, come the new year, we'll rotate our current national GKB license into a UEFA GKB when we get hopefully ratified by UEFA. That's the plan. But also little intricate changes which I think are massively beneficial for our grassroots area is we've turned our fundamentals of goalkeeping into a mandatory workshop for our grassroots coaches. We feel it's really important that they come away with the skill set of the fundamental skills of goalkeeping, basically, and they can bring that back to their goalkeepers or their environment, whatever that needs be. Because let's be honest, a lot of grassroots coaches won't have goalkeeping coaches working with them or have the skill set to deal with that. So we need to give them as much skill sets as they can when they're on the ground with their players, and how can they help that specialist area as much as they can. They don't need to be experts. We're just giving them basic tools that they can go back with, help the goalkeeper develop, and it's one of their mandatory workshops now. And I think it's a really nice addition, and I think it'll round off the grassroots coach a lot more now. So we're really happy with that. Coaches will move into right up our pathway. There will be a bit more movement back and forth, and that's from a UEFA standpoint. They've got to move into the generic core pathway before moving back across. So for it to enter in at UEFA goalkeeping B license level, you need to have a UEFA C, for example. So that's a mandate from UEFA, and we're quite happy with it. It makes sense to us. It really gives the goalkeeping coach an understanding of the outfield elements of the game and the coaching methodologies that we will use, and reality-based learning, and all the different terminologies that we use. I think it will massively stand the goalkeeping coach in a great stead. So I think we've done great work in terms of the goalkeeping side of it, and the biggest exciting one for me is changing the GKB to UEFA GKB, because I think we're in a really good place with that stuff already. I think we've done unbelievable work on the ground already as it is. So I think we're in a great position now just to enhance that even more now with the UEFA standpoint over it, which would be brilliant for us. It'd be really good addition.
Have you seen an increase in the interest of goalkeeping coaches, or is that part of, or is that going to stimulate more of people getting into goalkeeping?
Yeah, I think it has, Gary. I think it's improved, definitely. I don't think we've done enough previously, if we're being honest, and that was one of Niall's things when he first came in. We weren't doing enough for that goalkeeping area, the specialist area. So that was a big job, a big strategy of us, was to grow the number of what we're doing. Could we do more? We absolutely could, and I think we need to. I think we need to do more for our goalkeeping coaches on the ground. But we do get big numbers. We do get good numbers of goalkeeping coaches out there. Our grassroots levels, we could have big numbers on our fundamentals, our goalkeeping D, and then it obviously shortens as we go up the pathway. But from our goalkeeping D is dealing with multiple goalkeepers, and it's really a club environment type goalkeeping coach where he's dealing with 5, 6, 7 goalkeepers, and how does he create his football actions and reality-based learning within that multiple goalkeeper situation, for example. I definitely think there's an interest in it, Gary, because I think we need to be honest as well. It's a professional route for people as well, potentially, in terms of job opportunities. And it's the UEFA are now looking at the goalkeeping coach as an assistant. They're not seeing them as a goalkeeping coach. We're trying to change the terminology and the idea around the goalkeeping coach. So we're quite big on that in terms of we're really pushing that idea around the goalkeeping coach. So we see it as an important cog in terms of the staff. So we're trying to make sure that we give our coaches every opportunity to succeed if they want to move forward, because there's plenty of opportunities. And also with our National League underage structures, there's plenty of opportunities for our goalkeeping coaches to work practically in the game here in Ireland also. So we've massively invested in that in terms of pushing courses out and putting our resources into it. So I think there has been a big uptake, and we're still looking to improve that as we go. We're still looking to evolve it as much as we can and make it better.
Brilliant. Implementation plan. Is there a period of crossover for coaches who are on current system to get to the new system, or how will that process work?
Yeah, so next week now we will be starting the individual emailing of all of the specific qualifications. So if a coach has a UEFA B, they'll get a very specific email in terms of how the new pathway impacts them, what are their responsibilities in terms of moving forward, what they need to do. And it's really important for us that anyone that has moved forward within the pathway is not to be hindered by missing out. So we'll always open up the previous course. So for example, we had pro license coaches completed the UEFA Elite Youth A license as a CPD because they already had the pro license. So they didn't technically need to go back, but it's a qualification that's within the framework that we advise our next groupings of pro license to have. So we offered it out to them as a CPD opportunity, which meant it was extremely cost effective, and they were able to then gain that knowledge. And similar to that now with the implementation of the Elite Youth B license for all of our A license coaches out there, they'll be able to do that in a CPD format, which will be much more cost effective than having to do the entire course in itself. They'll also be able to do it in a more intense style fashion because they'll have demonstrated higher end competencies by having the A license. So there's a very specific plan for the next 6 months. We always allow a grace period because there's always going to be that opportunity for somebody to be out of football, especially with the current circumstances of COVID-19. Somebody could be completely and utterly taken up in terms of a separate employment in the health industry or whatever it is. So there will be a 6-month grace period from January 21 to June 21, where we'll allow flexibility on a case-by-case basis. But pretty much from 21 onwards, the pathway will be implemented. Anyone applying, for example, we have a B license being advertised for Donegal for the first time ever in October. So anyone advertising for that or looking to get into that will be on the current system. So the pathway itself won't come to life. So if somebody has their national C license from 2016, 2017, 2018, whatever it is, they would be eligible. But all of the coaches will be contacted individually, and it's really important for us to make sure that everybody is aware that any of the new courses we've implemented are based on research and best practice. And we're very lucky to have Dr. Seamus Kelly, who's the head of education in UCD, as part of our research structure. So everything that we do, not alone is guided by what UEFA implement, but it's also guided through actual research that we do. And I'm delighted to see that Seamus and I are in the final stages of releasing a publication on the pathway in Ireland in the International Coaching Sports Journal. So it's great for us to get that advertisement in a theoretical framework as well to show what we're doing. So it's an exciting time. It's going to be a very busy time for Craig and all of the department and myself included, but we're looking forward to it. But everyone that has a coaching qualification from grassroots all the way up to the pro license, they will be getting correspondence from us in the next 2 weeks to really identify where they fit, what changes could impact them, and what are their responsibilities moving forward.
Seems to be a real emphasis on CPD and continuing that throughout the year, so it's not just one course. Is that something that's a real goal for the organisation?
Craig, I'll let you go with that and talk about conferences. And
I think it's a goal for coaches in general, Gary. It should be, in terms of your own kind of lifelong learning. You shouldn't stand still as a coach. You should always look to better yourself and evolve, because the game evolves. So for us, yes, it's important, and we need to make sure that we fill people's cravings for CPD, and we have enough events and we have enough opportunities for people to develop themselves, because that's their responsibility as well. But the responsibility lies with the holder of the license or the qualification to better themselves all the time and keep evolving. So we've announced a list of conferences that we do throughout the year, whether it's our female game conference, whether it's our football fitness or goalkeeping, our annual conference. Futsal, which is a brand new one as of 2021. We're going to do a standalone futsal conference. So we've many conference style events, plus we'll also have online, and we're in the final stages, hopefully, of an e-learning platform. We're close enough to it. We'll also have online credits for people to walk through. We're going to announce a new credit system as opposed to an hour system. So we're going to work off credits. So different events will have different weights towards their credits in terms of their CPD. So we're working really hard in terms of really making it user friendly, but people have to work for what they get also, because we need to make it available. But if it's professional development, it's down to the responsibility of the people to do it themselves. And it's something that we're also passionate about, is making sure that we re-engage with people post-course, Gary. It's something that we've looked at, and it's something that we're quite passionate about, is making sure that we re-engage post-course, that we don't just leave people if they finish the course and we don't see them for another 5 years. It's how do we re-engage with these people, and how do we keep them on that journey of lifelong learning, because that's so important that we keep developing. If you want to develop the player, we need to develop the coach, and the player is the centre of everything we do. So we need to keep developing coaches as much as we can.
The online learning you just said there, the e-learning, I mean, is that going to fall into place? Does that come almost at a good time where you don't have to do or how often are they going to do face-to-face or screen-to-screen with a coach? Is that going to be something different, something new?
I think it's been sort of with COVID-19, it's expedited it for us. One of our long-term ambitions was to have e-learning and have online learning courses and have that available from the middle to end of 2021. But obviously with COVID-19, that completely and utterly changed the face of what we've done. And we're very lucky to have the support mechanisms in our communications department with Garrett Marr and all of the coach educational department, Ruth Doctor. Every one of us sort of came together and were very creative. We didn't rush into it, which I think was important. I think in the early stages of COVID, people were just layering out content for the sake of content and trying to get as much out as they possibly could. I think we did it well in terms of taking our time, really planning, okay, what would be valuable for coaches? What information do coaches actually want? We reached out to coaches in terms of an open access survey and asked them what information he would find valuable at this time. And it was great then to sort of reel out the webinar series that we did with yourselves and that we did on a weekly basis internally. We obviously launched a newsletter, which is members only, so people can register for free and they get members only access to it. So it was all about building up that momentum of, okay, how can we make e-learning work? And we've been working extremely hard with a number of different companies to really get what we want. And I think towards the end of this year, we really will be in a situation to create like a coaches club, where it's an annual subscription. I always sort of reference my own teaching qualification. On an annual basis, I pay a registration fee to the teaching council to ensure that I'm a registered teacher, that if I ever wanted to go back teaching. And it'll be very similar to that, where coaches will pay an annual subscription, but for that annual subscription, they'll get access to a substantial content, both video, presentations, session plans. They'll get access to session planning software. They'll get access to all of their course materials. So that was one of the things Craig and I really wanted to ensure, that when somebody finishes a course, that there's nearly a timeline or a pop-up where an educator will get a reminder to contact this group of people and say, how are you doing? It's been 3 months since you finished the course. How are you implementing the learnings from the course? And really getting much more comprehensive post-course when they finish that contact, that you engage with them. Because so many times with us, people come in, they do a course, you build a brilliant relationship, especially at the high end. We spend 18 to 20 months at a pro license level with a group. And one of the feedbacks that we got was nearly like a detachment, how you actually manage leaving that process, because it's like being part of a team again. You're in a room for 10 contacts over 18 months for 3-4 days, 15-hour days. You're socializing with each other. You're in micro groups. You're visiting each other's clubs. You're helping each other out in terms of assignments. You finish the course and it's gone. And you're sort of like, well, what's happened here? And then people are reaching out to us, but we're sort of going, well, we've another group. So the next group come in. So it's about how we actually manage that connection with people and even building mentorship. So we're looking at the current pro license group that have just finished, that they'll come in and actually mentors to the next group. So actually helping them out on a peer-to-peer level, because you know yourself, if you do a course, sometimes you're looking at an educator and you'll go so far as to ask a question or even to criticize. You don't want to cross that line, but having a peer-to-peer or having a mentor that's not really somebody that can be of an influence in the decision on how you're successful in the course, you can be much more honest. So we're really looking at that mentorship route, and Craig is doing a master's at the moment in time, and he's really looking at elements of research in that area. So it's again layered in with a theoretical framework, and that's really important, that people gain that understanding that all of the decisions that we make are based on what's best practice, both in the football world but outside in other sports, and that's really important to us. So really, look, it's one of those things. It's exciting, Craig. I don't know if you have anything to throw in on the learning. Craig's really he's had a lot on his plate in terms of what he's doing, but the e-learning has pretty much been his baby the last 3-4 months, and he's tested it. And I thought it was phenomenal for me as an educator. I walked into an A license 2 weeks ago, and there was 12 people physically in the room, and Craig had streamed all of the presentations, but then had created a separate Zoom link where you had 6 people on a wall. So they were physically in the room. Sorry, they weren't physically in the room, but they were visually in the room. So you could talk about it, Craig. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, it was, look, we have to adapt, Gary, don't we? And that was a big thing, was how can we make this user friendly? It's not about us just putting barriers up and making life difficult. We all need to adapt to current situations, and it's probably been quite good that you have to adapt in general, and it's probably opened our eyes to how can we help people even more, even without COVID or any of this kind of stuff. How can we help people more? We came up with the idea with one of our video partners who work with the association of how we might best run this, and they looked after the software element. Is it the real thing? No, it's not the same for the students who are working online. They don't have as much interaction. They still interact because they can through the Zoom. They can ask questions or whatever it may be, and it gets projected throughout the room. They're still there. It's probably not the same, but we're making the best of a bad situation, really, and that was important. In terms of that, we feel that we have to help people as much as we can. We're not using any specific platform for that. We're just making use of different little bits and pieces and putting them together and making it work, really, and it's important. And I think kind of the big thing for the e-learning platform going forward was that we've won a one-stop shop for our coaches. Everything is there. We don't need to use multiple platforms or different things. Everything comes under one house, and it's almost a one-stop shop for our coaches. That it's like picking up and looking at Twitter or Instagram or Facebook on your phone. This is what you go to for coach education in Ireland. That's how big we want to bring this, because we feel that it's there for our coaches, and it'll be a massive support tool for them. That's what we feel, that if they have a one-stop shop, it's the go-to, and it's a really nice thing for us to have. I think it'd be a game changer, for being honest with you, in education in Ireland. I really do.
Well, such a big community that I think is the thing with COVID. It's almost don't like saying it, but it's brought us some good stuff with the current. It's allowed people to be creative. It's allowed people to problem solve and almost accelerate problem solving. Where like our culture in Ireland has always been that there's coaches in Ireland and then there's Irish coaches all over the world, and it's very difficult for people with schedules to get back. So to open that door then surely allows you to build a real community of coaches who have. Because I did that, like I done my IFA badges, and then you just lose the connection. But it's interesting what you're saying there, Niall. Where like you go in for the information, but then after the process, it becomes almost a support mechanism for you. So yeah. You're looking at building that and continuing that there across.
Big time, and it's I even know myself. Because I did the pro up the north because obviously I wanted to, one, experience it in another federation, and two, actually be able to experience it and not have the pressure of being part of the management of it, because you know yourself, it just doesn't work. Somebody will always come to you and ask you a question, and I wanted to be the student in that environment. And like we were together, say, similar for 18 months, and I remember after the graduation, and it was sort of like a thing where we were expecting to see each other or speak to each other, and slowly but surely those conversations started to dwindle down, and then 2 or 3 of the lads got WhatsApp groups together and we're trying to set up reunions, and then COVID kicked in, and after COVID now, and there's probably 5 or 6 of us of the group of 23 or 4 that are still very, very close, but it naturally just you do distance, and that's one of the things for me. I really want to try and really re-engage, and I think we've done that brilliantly. If you look at the connections in terms of the goalkeeping, obviously Packy is such a significant influence in what he does in UEFA, and having him as an Irish person is brilliant for us in terms of goalkeeping. But in the pathway itself, you have Craig, who played in the league, you have Dan Connors, who played in the league and played abroad, you have Alan Kelly, who's played substantial career. He's currently involved with the international team and has been in. So we're re-engaging people all of the time. You look at our football fitness element, you've Joe Gamble, played in the league, you've Darren Dillon working in the league, Joe's obviously still working in the league, you've Frank Heller, who won the FAI Cup a number of years ago, Cork City Women's. He's working with an elite amateur club in the south, Avondale United. So you're really sort of, people are coming through the pathway and we're not losing them now. We're re-engaging with them and we're utilising their areas of expertise, and it's really important. Like the current crop, obviously you had Robbie Keane, Damien Duff, Keith Andrews, Andy Reid, Paddy McCarthy, all people with substantial playing careers, and they give you great access points for other people. So to have those types of people as mentors will be phenomenal. But equally, we have people who have huge experience in the game and that are very successful. Vinnie Pert, Paul Hagerty, Dave Rogers, and it's all about turning around and giving those people that have a skill set a connection that you don't get to the pro license and it's over. You get to the pro license, and now how do we re-engage with you? How can we best use your knowledge, your skill set, your experience to help other coaches to run CPD events, to do club visits? Like, one of the key things for me, and I really love the international aspect of having a person from another country in your course. We have a coach from Hungary, Szilárd Suto, who just finished his pro license with us, and he's facilitated 3 club visits to 2 different clubs in his own environment, where we were able to go and see them, and they're lower than us in the coefficient, but their facilities are 100 times better than us. So it's bringing people to an environment where you say, hold on a second, this is a small town of 30,000 people, but they have an 8,000 seater stadium, they have a training base. This is the best way. Rather than, it's great to go and see the Celtics and the Man Uniteds and the Man Cities and the Liverpools and all of those things, but they're not realistic at the moment in time. What's realistic to us is those clubs that are making best of their facilities, that are networking with their communities, that ingrain themselves in the communities. And when you get coaches coming in from other countries, it brings a phenomenal dynamic to the environment. And for us, it's great to see that there will be a little bit more freedom of movement. And even for the international coaches, it's really important. Reality-based learning is key for UEFA. And one of the significant changes that you'll see is that presence of an educator in your own environment. So even for international coaches, there was a fear recently where a lot of our courses, because we look at best practice, is shorter contact blocks. And they were saying, yeah, but we want to do an intense course. We don't do intense courses anymore because people were coming in. It was too pressurized environment. They weren't being able to take away a lot of learning. They were going into their own club environment. There was no transfer. But what will happen now for the international coaches is there will be elements to which they can do online. There will be elements to which they won't have to come in for 5 contact blocks. They may have to come in for 2 contact blocks, but it'll be an increased contact. So if it was a 3-day, they may come in for a 5-day instead, and they do coaching practice here. But as well, there's the opportunity where the coach can facilitate the coach educator in a 1-to-1. So the coach educator might actually end up spending, instead of a training session into a game, they might spend a training session into a game, into a training session, into another game. And really, the more time we can spend on a 1-to-1 in a coach's own environment, it's the better learning, because they're getting 100% of attention of an educator rather than in a course environment where they're dealing with 4 or 5. So it's a really exciting time for Irish coaches all over the world. And for coaches that want to engage with ourselves, it's really about having that holistic approach and knowing that when you come in here, we expect high standards from both fronts, from the coaches coming in and from what we give out.
Brilliant, brilliant. A couple more here and then we'll open it up. We've got questions flying in there, so I want to give you enough time to get those sorted. You've mentioned there the football fitness. I know you've got the performance analysis as prerequisite models as well. So, you know, having those there, does that there lead the coach into potential specialization, or how is that there? How does that process work with the education blocks?
I think it was important, Gary, with the taking the modules and putting it in a modular pathway, basically on the outside of the core pathway. Them modules would have sat in on the courses, so the UEFA B, UEFA A, Elite Day Pros, they would have sat on them. So performance analysis would have been a massive part of the course. We would have had football fitness modules in on the course. So we made a kind of conscious decision to pull them on the outside of the course and make them a prerequisite and give them more time. So basically, we'll have a lot more time on the football fitness element. We'll have a lot more time on performance analysis. And when we get back onto the coursework, then we'll have a huge amount of time that we can dedicate to the pitch. We can dedicate to coaching methodologies or whatever the curriculum sees fit. We'll have a lot more time to get more specific in terms of the coaching aspect. And we've just taken them out a little bit. And they also directly link in with your CPD then. So they're also your direct CPD. So if you want to, in the 3-year window, that's your next line. So you just need to fill them 2 courses basically, and that's done your CPD for the year. And it's relevant CPD. It's a relevant movement if you're moving forward. It's setting you up for success in your next course. It's a massive preparation for you, and that might be where you end up. That might be in terms of performance analysis. You might want to go down that route. You might want to go down the football fitness route. But now you're getting more time in it, and you're also getting more time on the grass in terms of the core course. So we're kind of stretching both courses better, and we're giving even more content to people. And we think it's really, really effective. We've made them cost effective because it's important. It's not there They're not added in to make money. They're there to facilitate learning. They're there to stretch people's knowledge in them specific areas, and to also leave us time or open up more windows of time within the course time in itself, really.
We're starting to see more, like you mentioned earlier about the goalkeepers, Craig, like we're starting to see more dual coaches with a coach who can almost do performance analysis. That just seems to be so like these keeping ahead of modern trends of the game, I suppose, is important as well.
Yeah, when you look at people even coming from college courses, so a lot of people, I don't know, people applying for jobs at the moment, either have masters or level 8 degrees that are coming out of college courses, and they've got coaching qualifications to go along with it. So massively qualified people are now moving into environments, so they can wear 2 hats. So whether that's the performance analysis side of it, for example, and they've probably got a B license or an A license to go with that. So they've got a massive skill set. So as a head coach or as a director of football or whatever it may be that's doing that recruitment, you can be a little bit economical with your budget there, or you can be really smart with your staffing, that I don't need to have 2 separate staff members. If this one person can fulfill what I need, I can be really, really smart at what I do. And that can be a goalkeeping coach also, and that's what we've been speaking about as well. Our goalkeeping coach adds value. He may take phases of play for you. He may add some sort of value as opposed to just being in the corner kicking footballs at the goalkeeper. There's other elements to the role, and that's what we're trying to enhance. We're trying to make rounded coaches that they can throw their hand to anything, and they're really comfortable in all settings, really, in the coaching environment.
Brilliant. Okay, let's tackle some of these questions here because they're coming thick and fast. William Mulligan, if you want to do a goalkeeper's UEFA A, must you have a UEFA B coaching?
Yes.
Simple enough. That's an easy one. I thought that as well. So all right. Hi lads, this is from Andy. Will previous courses carry over to the new pathway? For example, if you have a PDP half done already, will these credits carry over?
Yeah. Anything that you've done, even historical stuff, can be realigned. So I started out 20 years ago and it was the level 1. So if a level 1 coach comes in and you have your certificate and you can turn around and say, where do I fit now? There's an alignment process to everything. A lot of people would have done the youth cert. That now aligns with a national D license. So for anyone who still has a youth cert and they want to re-engage, they'd come in at being certified as a national D. So their next step would be the national C. So for anyone that has any qualifications, they all carry across.
Aaron has asked about the schedule of courses. When will they be published?
We'll be back in active delivery from September, and then all of the 21 courses will be up from November.
Paul, I noticed the elite grassroots license is not included on the new pathway. What will happen to coaches that already have this as their highest qualification?
That's now going to be a UEFA certified qualification. So we've now aligned that with our FAI club mark system, and that's called the UEFA Grassroots Leaders Certificate. So for all of the elite grassroots license holders, they will do a CPD event towards the end of this year or the start of next year, and that will see them converting to that new UEFA qualification.
Brilliant. This is a good one here because I know there's a few coaches on here that are from overseas that have no connections to Irish anything. Kazim, what methods do you do? What methods can you do as a support to the Nigeria coaches that are perhaps interested in B license or A license?
The big one for us is we always turn around and say your context is key. And if you're working in an environment, it's really important to really sort of, first of all, look at what's on your doorstep, because they will be more tailored to reality-based learning in your own environment. But for any coaches that have an ambition of working abroad or working in Europe or working in Ireland and have supported their own federation, which is key, there is a cross-border form that you must complete, which just means that you're eligible. So, for example, you may have a situation where a coach has gone through the American system and he has an A license certified by the USS A license, whatever it is, and they might want to do 2 things. They might want to move and work in Europe there is now a recognition of competence. So now there is a new form within the UEFA Convention where you can be recognised for having a certification at a certain level. So they could come in and in the country they're going to work, for example, if they were going to work in Ireland, we would have to do a process with them that we would formally recognise that, and they would get a qualification cert for 3 years. Now, it wouldn't be a UEFA B or UEFA A, it would just be a recognition of competence for that certification that they already had. Or you might have a coach that wants to say, well, I've gone through the US system, but I really want to develop myself. I want to get a UEFA B or I want to get a UEFA A. So it's all then based on competency in terms of an application procedure, an interview procedure. We're very formal in terms of that. At pro license level, it's quite substantial. It's very transparent. You get very specific feedback. So for any coaches that are out there, Craig and myself are readily available. Our emails are literally our names with a dot in between at FAI.ie. So it's a matter of just dropping us an email, and we're very open to giving you the guidance that you need.
Paul has asked, will current FAI C license holders have to do the UEFA C license before advancing to the UEFA B?
Do you want to jump in there, Craig, or will I go?
I want to take that one. You can take that one, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, so what we have two formats in the C license currently. So some people previously had a conversion course to the C license. So anyone that converted in the 2017 pathway from the old youth cert, they were given the opportunity to convert in a short period of time through a contact course. So anyone that did that one, they will have one certain CPD event, and anyone that did the full national C license 6-day course over the last 2 years, 2018, 2019, they will have a separate event. And again, they're both going to get emails next week in relation to what they're going to have to do to convert themselves. But they will have to do a conversion, but there'll be two separate conversions for the two separate entities in terms of ensuring that they reach the competencies of a UEFA C license.
You might have answered this one on the last one there, Niall, but it's similar on the international coaches from Adino. Really like to know what's happening with the Coach Education Ireland. Interested in the pro license. Can you expand on how I could prepare an application for that?
I think the best route always is just to email in advance. A lot of times people think that they have to wait till the course comes up, and then they're in that process of the course might be up for 4 to 6 weeks and they're trying to pull everything together. I would be saying to people that are interested, our next pro license doesn't open for applications till May 2022. But what I would be saying over the next 12, 18 months, people should be, if they're interested, should be emailing now. And that's the same for a B license or an A license. Contact us, send us your CV, send us your certification. We can tell you where you're at. We'll give you very specific feedback in terms of what you have to enter the course. And at least it gives you time then to pull that together so that when you do apply in the next round, that you're in a better position for the course application.
How many spots do you have available every 2 or 3 years?
Pro license is 20 places every 2 years.
Wow.
So it's like at the moment in time, just on the stats, because I was only in a conversation with it, there is only 9,045 pro license holders in the world.
In the world.
And we have 96 in the Republic. So it's a very, very limited group of people. It's very difficult to get into it. There are ways in what you can do and prepare yourself if you do want to get there. And what I love most about our current system is, with our current group that just started a couple of months ago, there was 4 people applied for the previous round, got very specific feedback, implemented that feedback, and were accepted onto this course. So that really tells me, and none of those people were FAI staff members or connected to the FAI. There were 4 external people that applied for the course, given very specific feedback, and they literally implemented the feedback perfectly. And then they were literally informed, yeah, you've reached the competency, you're now going to be accepted on the next course. So sometimes people think the feedback it's like an escape clause, or it's just given for this. It's not. It's really telling people, this is it. This is what you need to do to enter the course. And if you go and do that, then we'll be very happy to introduce you to it.
Very interesting. I know there's a lot of people on social media who have over here in the US who are almost can't get through to the next level of their A, and I mean, I don't know what the prerequisites are, but there's a pretty common trait or a common theme of the fact that people are saying you just need to get more coach education. I mean, I'm assuming that you guys you've said very specific with your, does that go from application to application? Does you sit down and say, listen, I mean, that must be an exhaustive process.
Well, the current application we had over 100. And based on each of them, the levels of feedback are as follows. So they would obviously get an email to identify that you haven't reached the course competencies, you're not moving to the next stage. There would have been 60 people got that process. The next 40 would have been informed that you're going to stage 1 or stage 2 of the process, of the next level of the process. Stage 1 was literally where they had to come in and they had to do a theory exam. And they had to do they sat down, had the theory exam, and then the next day, Craig, they had
interviews,
the actual interviews, formal interviews with the panel, and then their scoring was taken on to the next stage, and then those that scored higher in the application, they literally came to a formal interview. And the interview was extremely structured in terms of what was required within it, which was inclusive of presentations on themselves, multiple presentation style, tactical board presentations. There was a very specific scoring rubric. So afterwards, when people got the feedback, they were able to see exactly where they were competent in and exactly where they were incompetent in. And a lot of the times people just make the mistake of not looking at what the course profile is. So the profile of a UEFA Pro License candidate is somebody that is working in the professional men's or women's game, full-time professional environment, and or somebody who is aspiring to work in that environment. So what you'll have is, like, you might have a candidate who has spent the last 20 years working in an elite youth environment, and next minute they come on and they apply for the pro license, and all of what they talk about, all of their references are elite youth. When I'm dealing with 13 and 14 year olds, when I'm dealing with 15 and 16 year olds, when I'm dealing with, and it's not even talking about what they can take from that into dealing with the professional men and professional women. They're just literally talking about, well, when I'm dealing with young players. And the reality is, afterwards, our feedback to them is, you're not really going to be dealing with that type of player as a manager, as a coach in the professional men's and women's game. You're going to be dealing with adults. You're going to be challenged in a completely different way. So your experience is excellent, but you have no knowledge of the environment we expect you to go in. And we expect you to have a knowledge and a competence in the area. So what you need to do is you need to go and review yourself and see what you can take from that. Or better still, you can put yourself into that environment. You don't have to give up your job. You don't have to, if you're the head of youth development, you don't have to give up your job. But what you can do is turn around and say, well, I'm going to go to an elite amateur club, or I'm going to go to the club itself and look to see, can I work with the reserves? Can I test out where I'm at? And actually lay down the paths in terms of how am I going to get to that required level? And if you look at the dynamic of the 20 coaches that are in the current crop of pro license, there are I think there's 3 or 4 have come through, working their way up through the Women's National League, through the Men's Professional League here in Ireland. We've 2 or 3 that are working abroad. So it's really about, there isn't a fast tracking. There isn't a guarantee for anyone to get in it. Everyone is treated the same. We've had significant international former players who didn't reach competencies throughout the course and were moved to the next course. So they didn't graduate. So they were told, no, you haven't reached what's required of you, or equally you've missed a certain element of the block or missed some contacts, you've been moved to the next one. And it's one of those ones where I'm very happy, and I think Craig will back this up. We're in a very transparent place, because I know it's so difficult and I know it's so disappointing when people apply for any course and you don't get on it. If you don't get honest feedback back, or if you do get feedback that you think is just being evasive or is just there for a tick the box, it's even more frustrating. While with us, the value I have is, if somebody came to me now and said, well, I'd love to speak to somebody that didn't get on the course and was given feedback and is now on a course, we have 3 or 4 of them now, and it's great that and even every one of them have made themselves available for guys that have not gone on this course, and we've given them the feedback. But others, they don't take the feedback. They literally personalize it, or they literally say, no, I should be on it, or there's an element of unconscious incompetence. And the reality is, they'll most likely in 2 years' time apply with the same CV, with the same experience, lacking the same knowledge, and not have put in the very clear feedback that we've given them, and they won't get on the course. And they'll say, well, how have I not gone on? I have 2 more years of experience, but you've 2 more years of experience of the same thing. So it can be frustrating for us as well when people don't take it on board, but it's individual human nature, isn't it?
Very good. Very good. That's really interesting. Then on the other side of that, Declan has asked, got a 16-year-old son, wants to start doing badges. What's the youngest that you can start doing them?
They can come in at 16, Gary, but it's permission from parent and guardian. And the safeguarding would be the safeguarding and child welfare, and that needs to be done, and guard vetting needs to be completed prior to that. But that's at the discretion of the parents more so, and that's a kind of taken on an individual basis more so. We recommend 18, but we understand that there's wiggle room there as well, but it wouldn't be any lower than 16.
Jason Finn, he's booked on the National C license in March. Will this be rescheduled? And and is it going to be the UEFA C license scheduled?
Yeah, so any of the courses planned in 2020 will be the 2020 qualifications. So that will be the 2020 National C. All of the new qualifications in terms of UEFA, that will start in January 21. We will start working towards some of the conversion elements towards the end of this year, and working on sort of catching up. The next 3 months is going to be difficult. One of the things we've really tasked ourselves up over the last 2 months is there a way in which we can capture a lot of the theory online for people? Because it's like anything, when we go back in September, kids will go back to school, people will be slowly transitioning from working from home to going back to work. So time will be, as always, a limiting resource. So if we can, we're going to look and see how much theory we can do online, and then look at layering in the practicals after that. But anyone that has booked on a course in 2020, we would be confident in saying that as of December 31st, 2020, all of those contact courses and all of those courses will be finished.
Brilliant. Niall has asked, the conversion from Goalkeeper B license to UEFA B Goalkeeper Specialist, have you an idea of the CPD conversion course and approximately when?
That'll probably be mid to late next year, I'd imagine, Gary. So we'll need to convert our current course, so we'll need to get sign off from UEFA first, and then we'll be in a position to convert our nationals to UEFA's off the back of that then. So I'd imagine it'll be late to next year. That's
brilliant.
Realistic timeline, I'd say.
Okay. Waiting for this one. Someone's asked basically how much does it cost? I love this question from Paul. But to be fair, there's a bit more to it. Can you talk about the UEFA Elite Youth B license? How long? What's the cost? What's the focus?
So we're actually very excited about the Elite Youth B, because what it does is it sort of really gives a completion to our structure. Obviously, with the implementation of the 13s, 15s, 17s and 19s National League programs, it's been huge. There's no real strong academy structure in Ireland, which didn't exist prior to Ruth Doctor's time. And I think that's probably a legacy effect from himself in terms of having that. And for us at the moment, the Elite Youth A license it's 4 contact blocks. It's quite heavy because you're covering all of the different age groups. So you're trying to get a block on 13s, 15s, a block on 17s, 19s. We do an international club visit block, and then you're coming in for final evaluations. So now with the Elite UB license, you're in a situation to which you actually will have specialization in 13s and 15s. And then the Elite A is just going to focus more on 17s, 19s, and then that role of head of youth development. So the Elite UB license, you're looking at 3 contacts. You're looking at a block in terms of 13s, a block in terms of 15s, a club visit, and then a final evaluation aligned with that. It'll be delivered over a 6 to 9 month period. The exact cost of that is, Craig, do you have that off the top of your head? And that's further evidence that it's not cost driven, because I don't know the cost of it off the
That's good. That's a good sign.
So the cost of that course, the Elite UB license, is 1,250. So it's based on obviously 3 contact blocks, and you'd have over 100 hours in terms of contact. So as I say, it's these are, sometimes people think in terms of the monetary side of it, it's always that real topical one, especially at the high end. For us, we invest predominantly what we charge. We invest in terms of our guest speakers, our facilities, in terms of what we do. I think the best reference point was our last pro license from what was brought in, 93% was spent back out on the course in terms of club visits, in terms of what we were doing. So it's important for people to realise that we're very lucky. Rue Doctor really prioritised coach education. One of his key things that he speaks about currently is he wants everybody to evolve, excel and inspire. And to have better players, we have to have better coaches, which requires better coach education. And he really does that by investing. Like, if you look in terms of the department, the pathway has grown, I think, in the last 5 years from 10, 12 courses to nearly 45 courses. But equally, the department has grown, where you've now seen the administration staff have doubled. You've seen more coach educators coming in. We've had 3 or 4 full-time coach educators. More people were being upskilled all of the time. Like, one of the key things we've done over the past 2 years, we've had 6 staff training events to upskill all of the staff to make sure that we're all delivering a consistent message. And a lot of that sort of goes behind the scenes. So it's really important that people realise that what we bring in coach education is genuinely invested back into the game.
Those aren't the 1,000 for a 9-month long course is like, that's fairly cheap from what I've seen of coach education events.
Well, we really base it on exactly in terms of getting the guest speaker, facilitating the club visit, and looking at it. And like, even for myself, I look at it, our most expensive course is obviously the pro license, which is €7,000. But that €7,000 literally covers all of your costs. So we would do 3 international trips. That's your flights, your accommodation, your meals, your gear. Everything is covered within that.
That's all covered in the...
All covered in the 7,000. Your contact blocks, so we would do 10 contact blocks, your lunch, your dinners, all of your guest speakers, your performance analysis softwares, your e-learning, your session planning softwares. Everything is covered within that price. And it's, to me, as a standalone fee, it's the best way. I did it in another way, where you pay a standalone fee. I paid $7,700 at the time, and then you would have paid for flights to international trips and other costs. Other federations have a very low fee, which is like a federation fee, but then the way in which they would deliver it would end up costing 3 times what we charge, because you have to look after everything yourself. It's delivered in an educational facility. You pay for your own lunches, your own dinners, your own accommodation, your own travel, your flights, so on and so forth. So for us, I think it's really value for money. And the key thing for me is we're always looking at how we can implement education for everyone. Like, we've implemented so many free educational courses. We had over 4,000 coaches last year alone in 2019 do free education. So it's really important that people, and I think that's there now. I think that belief is there now, that they see that on the ground. They see what we're trying to do, that it's about creating better players. And to do that, every one of us has to invest, both the federation, the association, and the coaches on the ground.
You mentioned there about the numbers, the limitations for the pro license. Aaron has a good question there about other courses, because it's going to go, a lot of them are going online. Does that mean that there won't be limitations to the numbers that can get on those courses?
That's exactly what we're looking at in terms of our delivery methods, in terms what can we transfer. Some of the theory you can deliver in this format online, because it's literally, you're taking it in and you're sort of self-evaluating it or self-reflective upon it, and there's not huge engagement aspects of it. But there's other contact theory that you really need to have, that classroom environment, that face-to-face. So the priority for us is that we've created an educational structure that shouldn't stop anyone reaching where they want to go. So if somebody wants to go from the bottom at 18 years of age, and in 12, 15 years time want to be at a pro license level, that pathway is now there, but it's all based on competencies. So it takes away the personal side of it. It's not Craig, Niall or Rude sitting down and looking at a person. We're literally looking at competencies. Are they competent enough to do what's required of them in that course? Do they reach the entry competencies? And that's why we don't have a failure rate anymore. We don't talk, if we accept a coach onto a course, it's no longer their responsibility to get to the end alone. It's a dual responsibility. So, for example, the lifespan of a UEFA course is 3 years. So if you start the UEFA and 3 years later you haven't successfully completed it, what would have happened historically with us is the course would finish and you'd have to pay for the A license again. Now, if that happens to a coach now, we turn around and say to the coach, your course that you started is over, but we believed in you. We allowed you to enter the course. Whatever has happened over the process of it, we need to figure that out. You need to come back now and do the course again, but you don't get charged for the course because we have a responsibility for your education.
Wow.
Some people buy into that. Some people take the value of that and say, okay, all right, it's not a monetary thing. It's an actual educational thing, and others don't. But for us, if we allow somebody to go into a course, it's our responsibility as educators to get them there. It may take longer than others, but it's still our responsibility.
That's really interesting, especially with the nature of coaches being like a law of averages, Niall, is that you're going to get 20-30% of them that are going to be not really, probably not fulfill their side of the deal when it comes to the commitment and the work. Does that become frustrating sometimes?
Well, what it does is it really gives them nowhere to hide because of the sort of reflection model we have. It's not based just now on a coach educator. So in the past, you had a final test. So it was somebody to blame. So there was accountability in terms of it's your fault. I didn't pass because of Niall. While in the new format, when people are evaluated, there's a self-evaluation. There is a peer evaluation. There's a micro group. So before they even have to look at what the educator is reflecting, they'll have to self-reflect on themselves. They'll have a peer or somebody working with them that will reflect with them. They'll have a small group discussion afterwards to talk about what went well, what didn't go well, because predominantly it's on the pitch. It's the transfer from theory to practice. Most coaches that come into us are very efficient technologically, or if they're not, it's much easier to get somebody efficient at using a laptop than it is to get somebody efficient at delivering a training session on the pitch. So a lot of the times where people fall down is that actually getting onto the pitch and transfer of theory to practice. And that's where people struggle the most. And the big thing for us moving forward is we're, with the e-learning platform, we'll now be making sure that there's video evidence for everyone. Like a pro license level, everything is recorded, not only from an overarching camera, but from a GoPro on the chest. So we can actually say to the coach, look at what you're looking at. Now look at the big picture, look at what you're missing, but look at what you're actually looking at from your GoPro. That's the angle of what we're seeing. So that video evidence removes that subjectivity even more. And that's something we're going to layer down now at B license and A license with the e-learning platform. But I always say it, and I think, Craig, the key thing to us, for all the coaches that come into us, is if you put in the effort, you'll get the exact same back. And the ones that don't naturally fall off.
Brilliant. It's like VAR for coaches, isn't it?
That's it.
Well, that's what we need. I think that's the route we need to take, Gary. I think all coaches appreciate that as well, because, and I tell you what, it makes that reflection process easier, because you'll watch back your audio or your video or whatever it may be, and your work is almost done for you already. It's not a case of sitting over the laptop or sitting over a sheet or whatever it may be thinking, did I do that? Did I say that? I'm not too sure on that stop, or I'm not too sure how I affected them players, or whatever it may be, when it's just there for you. And you reflect. We're actually trying to make it user friendly again. We're trying to make it easier. And I don't mean in terms of we're making it easier. We're just making it more accessible, and we're making it a smoother process for everybody. That's what we're trying to do. And I think the likes of we're looking at chest cams for B licensed coaches now, which I'm not sure there's many federations out there doing that. And that's where we're hoping to go towards very, very soon. I think it's going to be an amazing process, and reflection is number one in terms of education. It's huge. And if we can make that really solidified within our education program, I think it's amazing for coaches. I think it'll bring them on another level. And there's no hiding space. You're right. It's like the VAR. Let's hope we're not having some dodgy decisions like the VAR. Get there, but it is. There's no hiding space. We're getting down to objectivity, because that's where we need to be. It's our responsibility. Let's take away the he said, she said conversation. It's about, well, this is what happened. How can we make it better? And it's not about exposing people of, this is what happened, why didn't you do this, and what. It's not there to beat you with a stick. It's there to enhance everything you're doing and to make it better. That's what we're all there for. Like what Niall said, we have a responsibility as much as the coach does.
Brilliant. A few more dropped in there. If you're Gemma, if you're currently on a B license, you're interested in football fitness or performance analysis courses, do you start at the introduction level to these courses, or do you jump on at the current license?
That would be their CPD event, Gar. So that, Gemma, that would be your CPD event moving across. So that you would come in at the equivalent level. You wouldn't start right at the bottom.
Tiwani, is it possible to complete the specialist courses futsal goalkeeper in a CPD format, or will it only be available as a full course?
They'd only be available as a full course. So you get CPD credits for doing the course, but there wouldn't be intense options in terms of, unless you have a higher end qualification in that specialist area.
There will be some elements though, Gary. So our fundamentals of goalkeeping, for example, will go online. We'll have an online option for that as well. So there'll be a dual delivery on that for some people. Yeah.
Last two, this is about money. I love us. Well, this is actually really interesting. When paying for your pro license, is the 7K due up front, or do you pay installments?
No, there's we have a specific contract that we actually give, and again, it's about giving people an objective reference, because people don't realize we build relationships with people as well, and it's very difficult for us sometimes to have to enforce the rules when you have a personal subjective. Is there any way you can help? Is there anything? So at the start of every course at pro license level, and we're going to implement this down from 21 onwards, we have a contract that the guys sign. So when we have a conflict or when we have an issue, we just go straight to the contract and say, look, this isn't me. This is you. You signed this contract. And within the contract, then there will be an agreement in terms of payment. It's at the moment in time, it's a split installment. So you pay the first installment in year one and the second installment in year two. There has been instances in the past where somebody would come, whether it be through a club or through somebody else, and look in terms of a payment plan. We're very open to that. It's about ensuring that the person that's been accepted onto it, we make it best work for them within our structures. But again, everything will be contractual so that there's a safety net within that then for everybody.
I don't quite understand this question, so but I'll ask it anyway. This question's for Niall. See the cost associated with the courses. Is there anything the association is doing to guarantee that coaches get paid from volunteer-run clubs in Ireland?
I think what that one is sort of insinuating is, if you decide to invest upon yourself and work into the professional qualifications that are a little bit more expensive, like if you were to do a B license, an A license and a pro license, you're talking about between probably 12,000 to 15,000 between time off work, between everything else involved. So if you do invest and you still want to work in the amateur volunteer game, is there an incentive, or is there a way in which you can get clubs to pay you? What I always say in that one is the value is on what product you provide, and it's really important that you put a mass on the qualification that you have. Sometimes grassroots clubs will look at you as a volunteer, and you will want to be somebody that's saying, well, I want to work in this environment, but I want value for money. I've invested in myself, and I want now the club to invest in me. And a lot of the times it's nearly like a small town mentality. You have to go outside of your comfort zone. You have to go outside of your own area, and you have to nearly go elsewhere, because if you try and do it in your own town, they probably look at it and say, yeah, but you're from here, you should be giving back. They don't see it as a profession. I remember experiencing that at times and saying to people, well, if you got a painter in that played for the club or coached in the club, you pay him to paint the clubhouse. If you got a carpenter in, you pay him to build the whatever it is. You're getting a professional coach in, you got to pay for the service. But sometimes that's much more difficult in your own environment, and you can get a bit of stigma from that. So sometimes you have to literally leave, and then when you leave, they see the value up, because it's like, oh my God, we've lost out on this great asset, and they're looking for nominal fee, or they're looking for support towards their education. But a lot of the grassroots clubs we would advise now is not physically paying somebody week to week, but paying for their education and getting a buy back that way. So making an agreement, look, you coach our team for 2 years and we'll put you on a C license. You stay with us for another 2 years and we'll put you onto a B license, and sort of working it that way. Because obviously in the end of the day, the amateur volunteer game is that it's that environment where it's based on, I think 96% of the coaches we have in this country are volunteers. So it's very difficult to try and mandate that clubs have to invest in that way. But there are different ways in which we would encourage them to invest.
Spot on. That looks to be it. This has been really good. Really enjoyed this. Just in between the questions, there's been a lot of great feedback just on on how accessible this is, the benefits of how accessible, and then an appreciation basically of the work you guys have done throughout the lockdown seems to have helped a lot of people as well. So a lot of people really appreciate about that. That's brilliant.
Great to get.
Commendable. No, I mean, I think it's just for me, like when you're talking about building, and keeping the longevity of someone's experience, I think that going back to that personal feedback, and even if it's objective, just the timing of that feedback and the specificity of that feedback really helps to build a relationship when someone feels as if, you're investing in me. Whereas, there's a stigma on coaching today, of coach education, that it is about the money, but it's pretty clear that that's not the case with you guys, for sure.
That's it. And I think for us, we sort of try and follow what we preach. We talk about reality-based learning. We talk about placing the learner at the center of the learning experience. And the key one for us is lifelong learning. That's what we want to create. We want to create lifelong learners. We want people that are open, that are honest, that are willing to take themselves out of their comfort zone, that are willing to challenge themselves, both as educators, as coaches, and that's really key. And that's really down to Rude. I have to give credit to where credit is due. Rude has created an extremely dynamic, high-performance unit where everyone challenges each other within it, and that then filters down to the environment we create in terms of what we deliver on the ground. So it's an exciting time. I think it's great, Gary, to have a chat with you and to give those coaches that aren't at home a connection. And the key thing is if any of them have any interests or want to find out more information of where they fit, they can just communicate through yourself or drop us an email. And hopefully, I don't think we'll get to the States in January, but hopefully we will. You never know if things settle down. But if not, we'll definitely be back in some capacity in the next year or two anyway.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'll put your email up here on the chat room, and then both your emails, and then I'll send this email out, or I'll send the replay to everyone. I'll put it on the website. If there's anything that you want to put up with the post on the website, just let me know. But anything I can help with, just let me know now. I appreciate everything you've helped us a lot with the webinars as well. So congrats on all your work here, guys, and best of luck with it.
Yeah, thanks very much. Look forward to speaking to you.
Appreciate it. Be
Take
safe.
care.
All right, all the best. Thanks, everyone.